congratulations for your documentary accepted.
Thank you so much.
Most importantly, congratulations on being showcased at Tribeca this year. How do you feel about that?
Humbled and grateful. Yeah, and excited that we get to show the movie to the students that were a part of it, and also a larger audience.
Excellent. So Dan, tell us. Let's start off with the easy question. What sparked you, or what originated you to make this documentary?
Yeah, so I first heard about this school and its kind of celebrative viral videos from my producer, Jason Lee. And I think what drew me to this was, obviously it's the story about acceptance and kind of punching above your station. And obviously there was this kind of media attention zeroing in on the school. There's a story about, race and education and access and power. But I think at the end of the day, what I was interested in was, what's it like to be a student who's about to go into their senior year, has this expectation on them and this media story around them. What's it like to just be a student, hear it from their point of view? And that's kind of what interested me to help tell the story.
So how did you first pitch this to Mike Landry of the school when you approached him about doing a documentary about the school?
Yeah, we talked to Mike. We said, hey, is anyone doing kind of a long following documentary kind of story? We knew they had, a fair amount of news media interview them and come in for a day or two and then leave. And we kind of said, hey, we'd love to show kind of what it's like to be a student here, to go through a year of filming and to really show the ins and outs of it and not just come in and then leave. And I think he was open to it. He was at least open to an exploratory trip. We kind of said like, hey, we'll visit for a week. And look, you may not like us and say, hey, let's stop. Or we may say, hey, we don't know what a story is actually. We don't know if it's here, and we might stop. But, we came for 1 week. We filmed and we had really connected with a lot of the students we had met. So we said, hey, we're interested. And he said, sure, come on back. Let me know when you want to come back. And then that's how it started, at least.
How much access did you actually have with Mike and the students at that time?
At the time, it felt very open and transparent. It felt like, hey, like we'd love to get an interview with you. We'd love to talk with these students. The students were like, hey, yeah, like, we'll talk with you for, maybe 30 minutes for those initial interviews. And it felt very open. I think as we continued to film, as the school year went on, the atmosphere kind of changed a little bit. I think, just to kind of generalize and speak about how it changed, it was kind of like why are you guys still here? Why are you still asking questions? Why do you still want to film? And so it became a little bit more strained as we kind of got closer towards the middle of the year, which obviously everything changed. A New York Times article came out and it kind of changed the entire context of us being there. So, yeah.
Your documentary was surprising because in the middle of your documentary, that was a complete right turn once the New York Times article actually came out, and that was quite unexpected by myself, who didn't really know the story. When that story came out, did Mike and the school cut you guys off, or did they still try to participate in the documentary?
It's a long story, and I don't know if we even have the time to go into every in and out of it, but I think this is essentially what happened. Was we had actually learned about some of the allegations that were ultimately documented in the New York Times article before the article came out. Some of the people we had met, former teachers or students who were at the school, kind of pulled us aside on one of our trips and said, hey, you may not know this, but these are some of the things that are happening at the school. We're talking to the New York Times. We're talking to other journalists. We want to get the real story out there. And we don't necessarily want to continue being affiliated with the school, or if you're doing a documentary on the school, we don't know if we want to be a part of that. And we kind of said, okay, this changes a lot. If there's any way we can help, we'd love to help, whether it's connecting you to other journalists or whatnot. But it seemed like they had already started doing that. And to be honest, we kind of paused the documentary there. We were kind of like, well, we're not equipped to do an expose. It seems like there are people who are equipped to kind of do the journalistic due diligence to kind of report these facts as they were discovered. And so we kind of actually paused for a while. And obviously our relationship with the Landrys became strained as they found out that we were talking to people who had left their school. And it wasn't until, honestly, a lot of the students that we had been following at the school kind of left the school on their own and were frustrated at the stories that were being told about them, around them, different stories within the community, that we kind of found a productive way to move forward with the film, which is, hey, you know what's still getting lost in this whirlwind? The students and what they're going through. And so once we keyed in on that, we resumed filming with that in mind. And so we came into it being like, let's follow the students through this. And we resumed it being like, let's follow the students through this.
It sounded like you guys kind of struggled in the change of direction for your documentary on whether you wanted to stick with the original idea. Am I correct?
Correct, because the last thing we wanted to do was misrepresent. We didn't want to do, it sounds like didactic, but we didn't want to do either a fluff piece about the school or a total takedown expose of the school either. And so we did kind of struggle and meditate and reform what we thought this movie could do and could be productive to do, for sure.
When you initially creating the piece of the positives of the school, did you at any point suspect that that a lot of this stuff was just maybe a publicity stunt for your guys' documentary?
To be honest, I didn't kind of go into it expecting any kind of foul play. So I mean, there were obviously quirks and uncomfortable situations. But for better or worse, I kind of took things at face value, and we kind of were just like, look, we'll follow you, whatever you tell us, whether it was Landry or whether it was the students we were following, like we'll go with that. And so looking back on it, we did learn like, hey, there were times where he or we were not honest with you. And, those things happen, and we explore it in the movie. And we kind of explore kind of the slipperiness of truth and representation. And especially when it comes to media, like we were a film crew. We were different than the news, but, we were obviously people with cameras. And sometimes when there are people with cameras, it changes how people behave. And obviously the Landrys, I think, had an impression they wanted to give off. And they did, whenever we were there, give off that impression. And then sometimes we'd hear from the students, oh yeah, after you guys left, it would totally change what we were doing, and it would be different. You guys never saw that. And we would be like, oh, okay, obviously we missed that. Can you tell us whatever you want to tell us about that? And so, yeah, there is this element of like the observer effect, where just by being there, you kind of change what's happening.
And what was it easy to convince these students to basically come back and how do you say, tell a different story from what they originally told at the beginning?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was easy. I think there were a lot of ups and downs throughout the year. There were understandably times when I think they didn't want to talk to a film crew. Sometimes we could be helpful as far as going through a difficult moment and being able to get it off your chest. And sometimes there were moments where we're like, look, I'm not interested in talking this week. Don't bother me. And we were like, okay, we'll get some B-roll around Louisiana or something. Don't worry about us. So, I think part of being a documentary crew, and especially, following students in a documentary, is kind of being respectful of their wishes. And knowing that, moods change and wishes change. But I think overall, my hope is that, we captured this senior year that they went through. They can always look back and say, oh yeah, this happened, and this is how we felt, and this is how we came out of it. So that's my hope.
As for yourself personally, as a documentary director, because you kind of went through a whirlwind of story changes through this entire process. What did you learn personally for yourself that you would take it to the next documentary? I mean, this practically destroy your trust sometimes, wouldn't it?
Destroy my trust. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
in your subjects.
That's an interesting way to put it. I think, if anything, this told me that the truth will come out. The truth will always come out. And if there's anything that I guess I could say I'm proud of, it would be that members of the community did reach out to us before the New York Times article came out and said, hey, by the way, this is happening. And I have to believe that on some level that was because we were trying to be as open as possible and as honest about our process as possible, that invited people to be honest with us in return. So if anything, it kind of makes me feel really just that you should approach every project with openness and honesty. And if you do that, whether people are not being trustworthy with you, the truth will ultimately come out because you've kind of created that framework, at least, of being honest and transparent. So I guess I would take that into any future project.
Excellent. Well, one more thing, Dan, as audiences get to watch your lovely film at Tribeca, what is the one most important take that you hope that they would walk away with after viewing your documentary?
Sure. I think I have two. I think one is I hope the film helps challenge people about the kind of the lies that we tell ourselves about how our society works and how fair or equitable our society is on a broad level. And then I think on a personal level, I just think like people get to see the story of these students and see how clearly they see through the bullshit. And that these are the students and the young people and the next generation that we have to make sure we're creating a society that's open to their gifts and open to their perspectives. So that's my hope.
Most excellent. Well, Dan, hey, thank you for speaking to us about your documentary, Accepted. And once again, congratulations at Tribeca.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.